I showed you a LinkedIn post
Yeah.
where some folks were engaged in a very ethnic dance, if you will. Is that the right terminology? Would you say?
I want to. It's like a line dance.
Okay.
I want to say it's the electric glide or electric slide because I can't do it. I don't know the name, but I know it's similar to that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny because when I was younger, I grew up around a lot of black people, and whenever certain songs would come on, everyone would break into this very specific dance
Yes.
that I had no clue how to do in the beginning. I became adept to understanding how to do it, but I mean, there were a lot of comments
Yeah.
from a lot of people who were not black.
Correct.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think part of the challenge in the comments that I saw was understanding cultural sensitivity. Now, when I looked at the video, my first thought was, is that a safe room? Right? There's a lot of people in leadership roles, and I thought, okay, is that a safe room? Did they know they were being recorded? Sometimes you don't know that. But I was taken back by some of the comments because I keep thinking, first of all, maybe that's part of the culture of that organization. So I'm thinking the comments are from people that are part of the out group, aren't part of that organization. Maybe that's part of the culture that they've developed, and maybe there might be better culture examples. But I think that if that's what works for that organization, who are we to criticize it? My other concern, though, was let me back up. The other part that I thought was really neat was that there were comments about a couple of white guys that were also participating. And I thought that's really great because it allows you as a leader to put your vulnerabilities out there for your coworkers. I see no issue with that. But I don't understand why somebody had to make mention of that. It's leadership people participating. And if a white guy wants to participate, recognizing that he's part of that out group. The in group is that he's part of the organization. The out group is he's not a black woman or a racialized woman in leadership. But if he's willing to participate and make himself vulnerable, I can't think of a better example of leadership than to say, I'm going to be part of the out group. Maybe I can't dance very well, but I'm going to try and I'm going to participate. I'm going to empathize with maybe the struggles of that culture by putting myself in a vulnerable situation where I am part of the minority for that moment. I can't think of anything more powerful because I think it was two white guys they mentioned. They don't have to do that. The safe money is to sit in the back and clap and cheer them on and say, great job, team. The tough part is saying, I'm going to take off my blazer, my jacket. I'm going to get up there. I might look foolish, but I'm going to put myself in that vulnerable situation. That to me is powerful. So kudos for those who might have been uncomfortable participating, saying, "Hey, I'm going to put myself in that role." And I have no issue with what they're doing. I have a greater issue with people criticizing them. I think all too often we want to find failure where there's success, especially if we're not happy in our own world. And so we, instead of looking at that saying, hey, how can I replicate that culture? Not necessarily the dance, but that culture where people get up and participate in something. But it's easier just to say, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to criticize you for what you're doing because that's going to make me feel better about my world, instead of saying, how do I develop the culture of my organization so that we all participate in whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a dance. It could be a sing-along. It could be wordsmithing. It doesn't really matter. But it's all about developing culture. And that improves an organization's culture by you developing a culture, whatever that culture is. Obviously, for this leadership group, it's dance. But it can be anything, right? So I would tell those leaders that are listening, what is your organization's culture? And what have you done to improve your organization's culture?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I saw in the comments, because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of culture. I grew up in culture. We are a cultured society. You know,
Yes.
Scarborough. I mean,
Yeah.
you got almost like the United Nations of people
Absolutely.
that you're dealing with, and it fascinates me.
Yeah.
But you know, there are places where they maybe not are exposed to that level of culture and to be vulnerable, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and to step up and you know, bust a two-step, if you will,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you may not have the, you know, sort of dance moves,
Moves.
right? To,
Yeah.
to kind of vibe with these people, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're taking your two left feet and you're doing what you
Right.
need to do to make yourself look
Right.
like I see you, I respect you, I'm a part of what you guys are trying to do. Now, but there's people who would call those people out and say, "You're not one of us. Step back, buddy." What do you say to that?
What I would say, what's us? Right? What is us? What? Because at the end of the day, what is culture? Culture can be racialized. Culture can be music. Culture can be dance. Culture it really is a commonality of anything. That can be your culture, right? And so, for those who would say you're not one of us, well, technically, I think that those perceived outsiders are. If the culture is the organization, whoever the employer is, the leadership role, that's their culture, right? Culture is not. We have to stop getting caught up that culture is about where you're from, what your racialized group is, where you grew up. Culture is anything. And in this scenario that we're describing, the culture is leadership. You've got a group where they're all in that executive level, I believe. That is their culture. And they're a culture unto themselves within their organization. So there might be first level managers culture, entry level positions is part another culture. The leadership is another culture. So I would challenge the naysayers to say that is their culture. And the fact that you can have people put themselves in a vulnerable position in leadership in particular is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier to be staunch, quiet, don't put any vulnerabilities out there because maybe your competition is in the room.
Yeah.
Right? You know, everybody wants to do better, so you're already amongst leaders, you're already amongst the best of the best, and maybe you're looking for being the president, being the CEO, or what have you. And so maybe you don't want to put those cards out there. So the fact that they've developed a culture where the leaders can show vulnerability and then be okay with them posting it so that everybody in the organization and in the world can see that vulnerability is amazing. I would say that they have an amazing culture, not culture from a black, white standpoint, culture in terms of their organizational leadership that allows them to show that they're human.